This is a third tutorial about how the Schmidt digitization is converted into various kinds of useful forms. So this is the main homepage of the Sanskrit-lexicon, and there's a Schmidt supplement to BERTlink, which we're talking about the creation of. And these are the kinds of things that have to be constructed out of the digitization and its scans, associated scanned images of the text that we have to start with. So here's an example of something that will be constructed. This is a PDF which is enhanced by having bookmarks indexed by the first word on each page, which makes it a fairly useful resource if you're interested in the Schmidt dictionary. And of course there's displays. For example, this is one of the displays, the so-called mobile display. And we have to be able to construct things so that we can pull up this information about this particular word and also have the appropriate link to the scanned image page for that word. So those are the kinds of things we're trying to get accomplished. So we're going to proceed in these sections under what's I've labeled as Tutorial 3 in this README file that is a guide. And although it's something that we have to take into account from time to time is making corrections to the digitization, Schmidt.txt. So here's Schmidt.txt. This is what it looks like. This is the digitization that we begin with. And sometimes there's things that aren't quite right about it and that get in the way of our constructions. We're not trying to correct all errors at this stage, but we're trying to correct the errors that seem to get in the way of something that will make the various displays possible to construct. And there's two kinds of changes. It was discovered somewhere along the way that some of the lines in the digitization file were out of order, and this update line program corrects those. So we can just look at its input, change line, and there's not very many, but there's a few lines that needed moving around slightly. There might be others, I don't know. This program could allow us to do that if we discover other lines that are out of order. And similarly, there are some errors in the text of one kind or another that needed correcting. And this file of correction inputs permits that kind of change to be made. So for example, some of the page numbers had an extra space in them, so we had to get rid of that extra space so that other programs would work properly. there were some odd numbers after letters which are used to represent Devanagari in Roman Unicode form. And so, for example, there was a Z5 in a particular place, which was just an error. There shouldn't have been a 5 there. So some of these kinds of errors had to be corrected. Some errors aren't corrected, but this permits further corrections as time goes by if we need to. So I wanted to mention that. Now, we already know how the head words appear in the file. This is a typical head word configuration. It's got the head word in two forms, in a form which is in Harvard Kyoto and in a form which is in Anglicized Sanskrit, with such things as this little raised circle. Here's an Anglicized Sanskrit form. You can see for this one that they're quite different in the form. So anyway, there's two forms of the head words, and this we know how to find those. And what we need first of all to do is to find out what page. We need to examine all of the head words, in other words, all the patterns like that, and find out what they are, and make a file of the head words along with the page and column that they occur in. So we have to deduce that from the digitization. It's not given immediately. And so this says that the first head word A, for the word occurs in column 1 of page 1. And in the digitization, it is the one line from 8 to 8. In Schmidt, basically, there's one line per head word. The digitization doesn't take into account the lines of the scan file itself, but just puts all of the information in one line. And so it's on line 8 of our SCH text file. Now, there's some things that come into play that we have to get rid of. For example, some of the head words have a colon in them in the text, so we do a little, and colons are the delimiters in this file, so we have to get rid of those colons in the head word spelling. We could have done corrections to do that, but I just didn't choose to do so. Now, there's also some spelling changes that need to be taken into account, and that's what this second processing of head words does. So if we look at this, it's the same form, but we've done certain adjustments to head word spellings, and here are the adjustments that were actually made. It happens that in words that have accents in them, Schmidt has accents, and the digitization often represented the accents in the Harvard Kyoto form of the head word, the key 1 form of the head word, and that is kind of inappropriate. So in this file, this head word was normalized in its spelling by removing that 3. And there were some other kinds of things that were done. For example, this is an odd one. And this is how it was adjusted. It's probably further investigation should be done on that. And this would be a source for doing possibly further changes in the spelling. There's also another situation that in Harvard Kyoto you can't express diaeresis, or the conjunction of two vowels, in the standard Harvard Kyoto, so I made up a convention to put a 0 after the AU. That's the form it always occurs in this dictionary, to represent that diaeresis. This note mentions that, but it's not really an error, it's just a feature. Now the last step is to convert these spellings into SLP1. That's the most useful form for everything else. So this second form of the head words, SCH head word 2, has the word spelled in SLP. So for example, ansha is spelled A, capital MZA in Harvard Kyoto, and in SLP1 is spelled with an S. And that diaeresis is taken care of in SLP1. It allows it to be represented as an A followed by U, whereas in Harvard Kyoto, without the 0, that would have represented the diphthong O. So anyway, this now we have the page number, column number, the lines of the text file, and the SLP1 spelling of the head words, and that's an important ingredient in everything else that follows. Now at this stage I also did a check of which of these head words were in Moner-Williams dictionary, and this is what came up. There's a lot, about half and half. Half are in and half are not. The last thing that's done is to prepare for the PDF bookmark file, which has the first head word on each page. And by reading this list of all head words, and since they have the page column numbers, we can find the first head word on each page and present that for our use when we construct that bookmark PDF. So let's see, that's SCH head word underscore page. So that's what it has. And there's also another thing that came into play here. There's no page 380. That page 380 is like a blank page separating the end of the dictionary proper with the supplement to the dictionary. So that was taken into account in the construction of this file of first head words on page. So that's probably enough to do on